The London studios of the famous daytime talk show buzzed with an unusual level of excitement. The producers had teased a special international guest, and when the name Meghan Markle finally leaked to the press that morning, tabloids splashed it everywhere. The Duchess of Sussex, who had largely stayed away from British media since her royal exit, was about to sit down live with none other than loose women. Cameras rolled, the audience clapped wildly, and the panelists exchanged polite smiles. Sitting at the far end was Denise Welch, the outspoken actress and panelist known for her bold, sometimes fiery takes. Meghan entered gracefully, dressed in a cream blouse and tailored black trousers, projecting calm confidence. "Welcome, Meghan," the host chimed, her voice bright but a little stiff. "Thank you for having me," Meghan replied warmly, her American accent ringing clear. "It's lovely to be back in the UK." At first, the conversation was cordial. Meghan spoke about her new projects in California, her podcast, charity work, and a budding lifestyle brand. The other panelists asked about motherhood, balancing privacy with public life, and her advocacy for women's issues. She gave polished, rehearsed answers, smiling often, her hands folded in her lap. But tension began to creep in when Denise leaned forward, eyes narrowing slightly. "Meghan," Denise began, her tone sharp yet controlled, "you've often spoken about wanting privacy, about escaping the glare of the British press. And yet, here you are, back in the spotlight, giving interviews, making deals, producing shows. Do you think there's a bit of contradiction there?" The audience shifted. Some gasped quietly, others leaned in. Meghan paused, her smile tightening. "Well," she said carefully, "there's a difference between choosing to share one's story and being hunted, misrepresented, or targeted unfairly. Privacy doesn't mean silence. It means having control over your own narrative." Denise raised an eyebrow. "But don't you think people feel manipulated? One minute, you and Harry are pleading for space. The next, there's a Netflix documentary, an autobiography, a podcast deal worth millions. Doesn't it look like you've cashed in on the very institution you claim to despise?" The air thickened. Meghan's posture stiffened, and her hands clasped tighter. "That's an unfair characterization," Meghan shot back, her tone firmer now. "Telling the truth of our experience is not cashing in. It's reclaiming dignity after years of silence." The host tried to step in. "Ladies, let's not get too," but Denise wasn't finished. "Hang on," Denise interrupted, turning directly to Meghan. "You say truth, but many journalists, even people within the royal household, have disputed your claims. Why should the public believe you over decades of tradition and records?" The audience stirred, some clapped, others booed. Meghan's cheeks flushed slightly, her practiced composure cracking. "Because lived experience matters," Meghan replied, her voice rising. "Just because an institution has tradition, doesn't mean it's immune to scrutiny. I went through pain, isolation, racism, and it was real. And if you can't acknowledge that, maybe you're part of the problem." The audience reacted loudly, half in applause, half in disapproval. The host's nervous smile faltered. Producers in the control room exchanged frantic glances. Denise crossed her arms. "Or maybe you're just very good at playing the victim, Meghan. Always pointing fingers, never reflecting on your own choices." That line landed like a slap. Meghan's eyes widened, her lips parting as though she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. The audience gasped in unison, the tension electric. Before Meghan could answer, the host tried again. "Let's take a quick break," but Meghan leaned forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "How dare you," she said, low but trembling. "Do you have any idea what it feels like to have your humanity debated like entertainment? To have strangers decide whether your pain is real enough?" Silence fell for a moment. The cameras kept rolling. Denise didn't flinch. "Then maybe you shouldn't have signed up for a live talk show, Meghan," she replied coolly. "This isn't Hollywood. This is Britain. People here expect accountability, not just soundbites." The studio audience erupted into a mix of cheers and boos. The host shouted over the noise, "We're going to a commercial break, stay with us." The screen faded to ads, but the drama was far from over. Backstage, producers scrambled, debating whether to let the segment continue. Meghan, still on set, leaned back in her chair, visibly shaken but unwilling to leave. Denise calmly sipped water, her expression unreadable. Part 1 ended with the promise of an explosive return when the cameras came back. When the show returned from commercial break, the studio was buzzing like a beehive. Social media had already lit up with clips of the heated exchange, hashtags trending within minutes. The producers debated muting controversial segments, but the decision was made: the show would go on live. The host's forced smile returned. "Welcome back. Before the break, we were having a spirited discussion with Meghan Markle." The audience chuckled nervously. Meghan sat upright, eyes bright with a mix of defiance and exhaustion. Denise, unfazed, adjusted her notes and prepared to strike again. "Meghan," the host began gently, "we'd like to shift the conversation back to your philanthropic work." But Denise cut in again. "No, let's not sugarcoat it. Meghan, millions watched your Oprah interview. Millions more saw your Netflix documentary. You painted the royals as cold, racist, and cruel. But doesn't that also paint this country, the British people, in the same light? Don't you think you've done irreparable damage to our national reputation?" The studio roared, applause, boos, gasps all at once. Meghan exhaled sharply. "My story is my story," she said firmly. "If telling the truth causes discomfort, maybe the problem isn't with me, it's with the system that refuses to change. I didn't harm Britain. Britain harmed me." The tension snapped like a live wire. Denise leaned in, voice low but cutting. "You left this country. You left your royal duties. Yet you still come back to lecture us, profit off your titles, and play the victim. Maybe it's time you admit, you don't want healing. You want revenge." Meghan's composure cracked fully. She slammed her hand on the table, startling the host and panelists. "How dare you reduce years of trauma to revenge? I nearly lost my life in that institution. And people like you," she gestured sharply toward Denise, "keep trying to silence women who speak their truth." The audience shouted, some clapping wildly, others booing. The host waved frantically for calm, but the noise grew louder. At that moment, a senior producer rushed onto the stage, whispering urgently in the host's ear. Her eyes widened. Turning to the cameras, she forced a tight smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to cut this segment short. Meghan, thank you for joining us." But Meghan stood, visibly shaking with anger. "You invited me here to speak. Instead, you ambushed me. If this is British journalism, then it's no wonder people are suffering in silence." The audience reacted explosively, half cheering, half jeering. Denise smirked faintly, her arms folded as if satisfied. Security staff moved subtly onto the stage, guiding Meghan toward the exit. She resisted briefly, pointing at Denise one last time. "You may sit here and sneer, but history will remember who told the truth. Not who shouted the loudest." The cameras captured every second, the Duchess of Sussex storming off live TV, the panel in chaos, the host apologizing profusely. The feed abruptly cut to another commercial, but the moment was already immortalized. Backstage, Meghan demanded to know who had approved the line of questioning. Staff avoided her gaze, some apologetic, others defensive. Denise walked past calmly, muttering just loud enough to be heard. "Play the game or don't play at all." Within hours, clips flooded Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Headlines blared across the world. Meghan Markle kicked off live show after on-air meltdown. Supporters praised her courage, critics mocked her fragility. Denise Welch trended alongside Meghan, hailed by some as fearless, and condemned by others as cruel. For Meghan, the damage was both devastating and strangely empowering. Once again, she had been silenced, but once again, her words had sparked a fire no one could ignore.